You guys share your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, Pat Patterson, another guy in my opinion, who had a world knowledge and about the psychology of wrestling, and quite frankly, if I ever had a question about something I was asked to do, or if I ever needed, like if I got into a position where I needed some help, if he was available, he's always the first guy I'd go to. I think, I'm not sure, but I think he had something to do with the development of my character, which was basically Vince's idea, But Bruce told me that this was funny. Vince and him took a flight somewhere, and he said, "Bruce," he said, "I'm gonna prove a point to you. Everybody's got a price." So they're sitting in first class, and this was before you could still smoke on a plane, and Vince hates smoke. So this guy, either in front of him or behind him or next to him, this lights up a cigarette, and he says, "Man, can you please put your cigarette out?" He says, I'm sorry. He says, "But I paid for my seat, da 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 da." And so he goes, "Man, I'll give you a couple $100, He says, "I'm sorry." He says, I said, "Hey, look, I'll give you $500. And he says, "I'm sorry." He says, "I'll give you $1,000. He puts a cigarette out and he takes the money. and he looked at Bruce. He said, "See, everybody's got a price." And so, anyway, that's. But I'm sure that Pat had something to do with the development.
Can you clear up one thing for me personally? So you're in the WWF or WWF at the time, and you're the North American champion, and they come up with this idea. I think Vince Sr. comes up with the idea of the Intercontinental title, and then you're supposed to have this match in what?
Rio de
Janeiro with Patterson for the Intercontinental.
Okay, what happened is the first time I went to New York, until then, my understanding was they had a world champion, world tag team champions, female world champion, and female tag team champions, and that was the only titles that they had. And so when they brought me in as the North American heavyweight champion. First time they introduced a new title to the territory. And so I don't know, a little while went on, and I just happened to mention to Vince Sr., I said, Bill Watts has a North American champion in Mid-South. And he said, "I didn't know that." So that's what, it was kind of like a respect thing. And so they made up a story, is what they did, is that, like Pat beats me, for the North American title, and then goes off to this tournament in Rio de Janeiro where all of these champions put their titles up, and whoever comes out of that tournament, the winner, is the Intercontinental champion.
So there is no match, there is no tape on it, you can't find it.
No.
Because there's people claiming there's tape on it. Oh, I have it.
No, it never happened. It was a story.
Well, wait a minute, Pat was supposed to be Southern heavyweight champion. When did that happen? That's the other mystery to this whole thing. Mike, how about your memories of Pat?
Yeah, Pat was a great psychologist and had a lot of experience, and had seen a lot in the business and helped a lot of guys. I remember Pat mostly when Barry and I first started back in 1984. Pat was a producer / agent on the road, and I worked with him one time at a bar mitzvah. They booked us at this bar mitzvah somewhere in New York.
Patterson at a bar mitzvah.
Yeah,
right.
and that's what the kid wanted. That's what the kid wanted for his bar mitzvah.
Pat Patterson.
So we had three matches on the card, and I worked with Pat. And then we jumped in the car and drove to Washington, D.C. for our night show that weekend. It was crazy. So, but yeah, and I remember I had just gotten married, and I got my wife on the road, which was basically the only time we ever got to see each other. I brought her on the road because I was never home. And Barry had a girlfriend on the road, and so we come back. We made it through this snowstorm, and Barry and I are on last with Sheik and Volkov, and we come back and our wife, or my wife and Barry's girlfriend, are in the back drinking pina coladas with Pat. And I'm like,
That's great.
but that's, and he was just happy. He was, I'm so happy you make it here.
He's a
We
good
thought we
host.
were
Wait a
gonna
minute, that's a
have
pretty good
chance."
imitation of Pat.
that
That is
actually-
much better than you.
You're the one who imitates Pat. I've never even tried to.
I'm not even close to that. Can I hear another one? Do we have
was
another
good.
one?
Look at all these
Now
guys.
you left the pressure on me. No.
We'll get a promo afterwards. He'll do Patterson.
I always want to know about